My neighbor surprised me with a gift while I was in bed, and you won't believe what unfolded next. The afternoon unfolded slowly, draped in a curtain of rain. The kind where the world seems slightly muted, as if the very air is pausing in anticipation. I lay in bed, teetering on the edge of slumber, caught between dreams and wakefulness. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, its sound resonating in the stillness, almost overwhelming in its clarity. I typically avoid napping during the day, but today had a unique quality about it. It was my birthday, yet I wasn't in a particularly festive mood. I hadn't done much to celebrate the moment, no festivities, no elaborate displays. It was simply a serene day, just as I preferred. The room enveloped in a comforting stillness, nearly too tranquil. The thick curtains shut out the majority of the light, enveloping the room in a gentle, subdued radiance. I hadn't even thought about getting out of bed yet. The sheets felt cool against my skin, and the pillow offered just the right amount of firmness. I was slowly succumbing to sleep when a gentle knock at the door broke through, barely perceptible against the backdrop of the rain's steady rhythm. "Come in," I called out. Not really expecting anyone, certainly not at this hour. The door creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. For a brief moment, she was a stranger to me. It felt like she had emerged from a long-forgotten recollection and entered my reality, but then the outline of her, the way she carried herself, the recognizable fragrance of her perfume. It all fell into place. It was Emma, my neighbor. She had always been present in some form, since we were children. She was merely a few years my junior, and during our formative years, we shared endless hours in each other's company. We dashed through the neighborhood, stirring up mischief, engaging in conversations that danced between significance and triviality. Yet as time passed, we found ourselves growing distant. Not due to any misstep, but rather because that's just how life unfolds. Time transforms everything, individuals progress and embark on their own journeys, yet Emma, she had always been present, lingering at the periphery of my existence. Occasionally, we would cross paths at the grocery store, or I would spot her strolling by with her dog in front of my house. She continued to reside in the same quaint cottage next door, just as she always had. "Hey," she said softly, her voice enveloping me in an unexpected warmth. It felt as though ages had passed since our last conversation, despite the fact that it had merely been a few months. "Hey, Emma," I responded, my voice gravelly from sleep. "What's happening?" She paused briefly, lingering by the entrance. A subtle tension lingered in the atmosphere, an unarticulated feeling that eluded my understanding. Perhaps she simply hadn't anticipated discovering me in this state, sprawled on the bed, clad only in a worn t-shirt and jeans that had long lost their significance. She cast her gaze downward, as if caught in a dilemma about whether to remain or depart. With a small, almost shy smile, she stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "I brought you something," she said. Her voice tinged with a hint of anxiety. She clutched something in her hands encased in unadorned brown paper, secured with twine. It was petite. Yet the way she grasped it revealed its significance to her. I sat up in bed, suddenly more alert, a blend of curiosity and confusion swirling within me. "I told you. You really didn't need to get me anything." I tried to keep my tone light, but I couldn't tell if I succeeded. "You have provided me with more than sufficient over the years." She arched an eyebrow at me, as though that wasn't exactly what she intended. Her lips curled into a smile. In that moment, I recalled a memory from my childhood. As if she were on the verge of laughing at a secret only she understood. "I know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper now, "but I wanted to." "It is something extraordinary." She moved in, perching on the edge of the bed, her knees lightly touching. The texture of the blanket made the room seem more confined now, more intimate. I had always viewed Emma as merely a neighbor, a friend. Yet, as I sat so near to her, I observed details I had previously overlooked, the manner in which her hair cascaded ever so slightly. It fell just right around her shoulders. The way she tucked a stray lock behind her ear when she felt anxious, the softness in her eyes that I had never noticed before. There was something more here now, something I wasn't prepared for. I looked down at the little bundle in her Palms. What is it? I inquired, attempting to set aside the peculiar sensation slithering up my spine. She didn't respond right away, instead offering me a glance that was a blend of playful and hesitant. A glimmer of something danced in her eyes, a profoundness, perhaps, or a fragility I had yet to perceive. Open it, she said simply. I took the package from her, running my fingers over the rough paper. It was a fragile creation, tiny yet significant. As I carefully untied the twine and peeled back the paper, a small wooden box revealed itself within. It was simple, nothing extravagant, yet there was an essence to it that felt intimate. I unwrapped it gently. Inside lay a simple necklace, featuring a small pendant shaped like a star, its surface adorned with delicate, intricate designs. It was lovely in its straightforwardness. My fingers brushed over it, and I could feel the weight of it in my hand, but there was something heavier about it than just the metal. It's beautiful, I murmured, my voice softer than I had meant it to be. I found myself uncertain whether I was referring to the necklace or the gesture itself. She smiled, her eyes softening in response. I believed you would appreciate it. I recalled you often mentioned your desire for one when we were young ones. I was taken aback that she recalled. It had been years since we discussed matters like that, and yet here she was, resurrecting a long-buried desire from our childhood. It felt profound, like a connection spanning our history and the present moment. I struggled to articulate my emotions, so I chose silence instead. Instead, I set the necklace on the nightstand next to me and turned to face her footy. My heart raced now, though I couldn't quite grasp the reason. Perhaps it was the unexpected nature of it all. Or perhaps it was something deeper. Thank you, I finally managed. My voice was low as she reached out then, her hand hovering near my face before gently brushing a strand of hair away from my forehead. Her touch was gentle, yet it remained, and something within me constricted at the mere act. And then, without uttering a word, another word, she leaned in, her lips brushed against my cheek, soft and fleeting, yet in that instant, it felt as if time itself had paused. The world beyond. The rain drumming softly on the glass, the clock ticking rhythmically on the wall. Everything faded, leaving only the warmth of her kiss, and the surprise of it all. When she pulled back, her eyes remained locked on mine, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Happy birthday, she whispered, and there was an essence in her voice, an unexpressed sentiment that lingered between us. It was then I realized I hadn't known what gift she had for me, but this was more than I could have ever expected. The room lingered with warmth, the air heavy with the silence that came after her kiss. I was caught off guard. I hadn't realized it was something I desired until that precise moment. It wasn't merely the kiss, which had been both surprising and tender, it was the silent bond that ignited between us, akin to a spark igniting in dry wood, and she lingered, not rushing to pull away. Neither of us did. For a long time, we simply sat there, both of us a little uncertain, yet somehow, neither of us seemed to want to break the silence. Emma was always different from the others, words eluded me. Yet there was an unmistakable, earthy quality to her essence. Something reliable. When we were younger, I always sensed her presence as a constant, woven into the very fabric of the world. Akin to the gentle sunlight of morning, reliable yet not overpowering. But now, as she sits beside me on the edge of the bed, everything feels different. About her appeared to have transformed. Altered in a manner I couldn't entirely comprehend. I found myself questioning whether she sensed it as well, this peculiar energy that flowed between us. It wasn't merely the kiss. It was something profound, something that had been hidden away for ages, likely since we were both far too young to grasp its significance. She appeared to pause for a moment, her gaze drifting to the necklace, the way I had placed it on the nightstand, as if contemplating whether to say something about it. However, she redirected her attention to her lips curling into that familiar, half-amused smile. "You look surprised," she said, her voice airy, yet tinged with a hint of something deeper beneath the surface. I ran a hand through my hair, attempting to dispel the foggy sensation that had enveloped me. I find myself taken aback. However, not in a negative sense. She laughed gently, her gaze becoming tender. Excellent. I hoped it wouldn't feel strange or put you in an awkward position. We lingered in silence for a few moments, the atmosphere around us charged with unexpressed thoughts. Until I finally found my voice once more. What prompted you to take that action? I inquired. The kiss, I mean. Her eyes flickered for a brief second, revealing the contemplation swirling in her mind as she considered how to respond. I don't know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I believe I've been longing to embark on this journey for some time now. Perhaps it's been longer than I truly understood. She glanced down, toying with the sleeve of her sweater. The very one I recalled from last week, when she strolled her dog by my house. A wave of emotion surged within me. Could it truly be that straightforward, or was there something deeper at play? The thought of more was something I hadn't considered. Permitted myself to ponder up to this point. You don't need to clarify, I responded, my voice gentler than I had meant it to be. I believe I grasped more than you realize. After a moment of stillness, she turned her eyes back to me, her stare now charged with a deeper intensity than before. I sensed her gaze upon me, as if she were measuring something in her thoughts, contemplating whether to delve deeper. Then she exhaled softly and offered a faint smile, the kind that seemed to conceal deeper thoughts. Then it unveiled, perhaps, she spoke softly, there has always been an unspoken connection between us. We had a strong bond in our younger days, but I believe it seems we both developed our own interpretations of what that entailed. But what about now? Perhaps it varies. The words hung in the air, evoking a sense of inquiry, perhaps even a beckoning. It was impossible for me to dismiss the notion that she had a point. Something had changed. But what could it have been, and where we were headed from here, I couldn't say. But I was certain of one thing. I wished for this moment to last forever. Not yet, not when the atmosphere surrounding us buzzed with energy, so vibrant and full of life. In her presence, I felt a rawness, an unrefined vulnerability that was entirely new to me. And she, Emma, was not escaping from it. She sat here with me, equally uncertain, equally receptive to whatever might unfold next. I took a deep breath, attempting to collect my thoughts. You know, I remarked after some time, my voice now softer. I have always been curious about what it might feel like. Not just the kiss, but what it would feel like for us, now, after all these years. Her gaze softened, the edges of her lips curving into a tender, understanding smile. It's amusing, she remarked, I've pondered the very same question. It felt as if a curtain had been drawn back, revealing something that had always existed, but was only now coming into focus. I gazed at her once more, truly taking her in, and for the first time, I realized just how much time had slipped away since our childhood, the transformation she underwent, the delicate alterations in her appearance, the evolution in her demeanor. She was a woman now. And though that truth had always existed, it suddenly felt strikingly evident. For a moment, I considered expressing something deeper, perhaps about the future, the past, or what lay ahead. Yet, the words remained elusive. Instead, I found myself doing something simpler. I extended my hand and grasped hers, softly, almost with hesitation, as if constructing a delicate bridge between two souls who had been unaware of the distance that separated them until this moment. Her fingers enveloped mine, warm and reassuring. You've always been there, I murmured, nearly as much to myself as to her, even in silence, even in uncertainty about what we were, you have always been woven into the fabric of my life. Emma didn't respond immediately, but the way she gripped my hand spoke volumes. She understood, and in that moment, something within me, something that had been hidden for a long time, stirred. I found myself uncertain about the significance of this newfound intimacy, this silent bond. Yet, I understood that it was something I would have to confront. As we sat together in the stillness of the room, her gaze remained unwavering on mine. In that moment, a rare sense of tranquility washed over me, a feeling of everything being as it should, even amidst the uncertainty that lingered around us. Perhaps we don't have to understand everything at this moment, she murmured gently, her tone infused with a hint of newfound assurance. Perhaps we should simply allow it to exist as it is. I nodded, uncertain if I concurred with every statement, yet sensing the underlying truth within them. There remained a vast expanse to discover. There is an abundance to explore, but for now, in this moment, I didn't need to have all the answers. I only needed her here, beside me, and maybe that was enough for today. The days that came after Emma's surprising visit had a distinct quality, though I couldn't quite identify the reason at the time. Their house continued to creak with the same familiar sounds. The floorboards groaning beneath my feet, the low hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, yet something had changed in the space between us, the tension hung in the air. Yet it was not the kind that brought discomfort. It was more akin to a silent connection, an unarticulated bond that neither of us openly recognized yet both experienced profoundly. I started to observe nuances I had previously overlooked, the way her laughter resonated in my thoughts, how the fragrance of her perfume appeared to linger in the atmosphere long after her departure, and how even the most trivial exchanges between us felt imbued with significance. Whether we encountered each other at the grocery store or shared casual greetings while caring for our yards, there was an unspoken connection that lingered. It transcended the kiss, it encompassed everything that followed, the gentle easing of barriers, the revival of feelings that had lain quiet between us for years. Initially, we chose not to revisit that moment, neither of us appeared prepared for it, yet it lingered in the spaces we occupied. It was the unacknowledged presence, the truth we both avoided naming, yet even in our silence, a conversation unfolded. The way Emma's eyes softened when they met mine, the way she lingered a little longer than usual whenever we talked, those quiet gestures spoke volumes. I found myself falling into those moments, letting them fill the gaps between the words we didn't say. I found myself thinking about her more than I had in years, wondering what she was doing, where she was going, what thoughts occupied her mind. And sometimes, just sometimes, I caught myself imagining what it might be like for us, together in a way neither of us had expected. But the thought felt both exhilarating and... it was a moment filled with an unsettling thrill, akin to plunging into uncharted depths. On a Thursday afternoon, nearly a week after our last encounter, I found myself face to face with Emma once more. This time, it wasn't within the familiar confines of the store or near the fence. She stood at my doorstep, unexpected. Yet there was an unmistakable quality to her demeanor, an openness, a raw vulnerability, that suggested this visit held greater significance. I opened the door, a wave of surprise washing over me. As I took in the sight of her, hands nestled in the pockets of her coat, her hair tousled from the breeze, I sensed the weight of the moment. "Hey," she said, her voice gentle yet infused with that comforting familiarity. "Hey, what's going on?" I responded, making an effort to maintain a calm tone. I couldn't help but notice her appearance, fresh and yet somehow more mature. A newfound ease enveloped her, a quiet confidence that had previously eluded her grasp. "I was hoping we could talk," she said, her eyes meeting mine. "About last week?" I nodded slowly, moving aside to allow her entry. I hadn't anticipated her to mention it again, but now that she had, I found myself feeling relieved. The tension between us had been hanging in the air, and I had been anticipating the moment we would finally face it. She entered, her boots softly thudding against the wooden floor. I shut the door behind her, and we lingered for a moment, simply gazing at one another. "Do you want something to drink?" I asked, though it felt like a futile question given the weight of everything unspoken between us. "No, I'm okay," she replied, her gaze unwavering. I have been reflecting on the events that transpired. And I think I owe it to us to say what's on my mind." I could see the sincerity in her eyes, the careful way she chose her words. She was treading lightly, just as I had been, both of us trying to navigate the delicate space we had stumbled into. "I don't know what it means, what we're doing, or where we're going with this," she began, her voice vulnerable yet stronger than I'd expected. "But I do know that I don't want to ignore it. I don't want to pretend like things haven't changed between us." I swallowed, the weight of her words sinking into me. I could feel the same uncertainty in my chest, the same stirring desire to acknowledge what was happening between us without fully understanding it. Neither do I said, my voice barely above a whisper. It feels different. And I can't quite put it into words. But I really hope it doesn't fade. Her gaze softened. A gentle smile playing at the corners of her mouth. I don't want it to fade, either. However, I also prefer not to hurry into any decisions. I want us to take our time with this. To truly grasp what it is before we act in a way we could regret. I nodded, sensing the weight of her words resonate within me, the urgency I once felt to define this, whatever this was between us. Was slowly giving way to a quiet patience, and acceptance that sometimes, things take time. At times, it's essential to allow things to develop naturally. She moved a bit closer then. Just enough to bridge the space between us, yet not so much as to feel imposing. It felt as if we were allowing one another the freedom to breathe, to truly understand the path we were taking. I'm not asking for anything, she continued, her voice now a gentle whisper, as if she were confiding a secret. I'm just saying. I don't want to let go of whatever this is. I don't want to let it slip away because we're too afraid to admit it. Her words tightened my heart, a wave of emotion surging through me. I had felt a deep-seated fear. A fear of the unknown that loomed ahead, if we dared to cross that line, if we surrendered to the true nature of this connection that bound us. Yet, listening to her voice as she spoke those words, recognizing the fear and the potential, transformed the experience into something less intimidating, more like a journey we could navigate side by side. I don't want to lose it either, I said. Finally allowing myself to be vulnerable. But I don't want to rush things, either. We can savor the moment. Let's solve this, whatever this is. She smiled then. The smile that always had a way of making everything seem more achievable. As she extended her hand, softly resting it on mine, a wave of tranquility washed over me. It felt like we were finally, after so long, recognizing that this, whatever it might be, was indeed real, and that we could journey through it side by side. I'm glad you said that, she whispered. I think we're both ready to figure it out. And just like that, the tension that had been hanging between us, that delicate uncertainty, eased. It remained, not completely absent. Yet it no longer seemed like a barrier. It seemed like a journey we were both eager to embark on, together, at our own rhythm. I was uncertain about what lay ahead. I was uncertain about the direction this would take. In that instant, I realized we were no longer two individuals trapped in the past, unsure of what had shifted. We were just two individuals, united in the moment, prepared to confront whatever lay ahead, and perhaps that was sufficient for the time being.